Story number 1 title: The Desolate Midnight Highway on a Moonless Night. In the heart of nowhere, there existed a stretch of highway known only to the most daring souls, a road that whispered of chilling secrets and sent shivers down the spines of all who dared to traverse its eerie expanse. This was the infamous Route 666, a highway with a sinister reputation that could chill the bravest heart. It was midnight, the darkest hour, when Mark and Sarah, a couple on a cross-country journey, found themselves unwittingly veering onto Route 666. Unbeknownst to them, they had entered the realm of the unknown, a place where the laws of reality seemed to unravel. The highway ahead of them stretched into infinity, devoid of any other travelers, and the car's headlights struggled to pierce the inky blackness. As they drove deeper into the abyss, the atmosphere grew thick with an oppressive silence. Mark's knuckles whitened as he clutched the steering wheel, and Sarah's gaze darted anxiously from side to side. Unease settled in their hearts, and a lingering sensation of being watched gnawed at their nerves. Suddenly, the car's radio crackled to life with a ghostly whisper, a voice that seemed to emanate from beyond the grave. It spoke of things better left unsaid, of lost souls and eternal torment. Mark reached to turn it off, but the radio continued its spectral transmission, a relentless torrent of haunting words. Then, as if summoned by the otherworldly broadcast, a figure appeared in the middle of the road ahead. Its form was twisted and contorted, an abomination that defied the laws of nature. Mark slammed on the brakes, sending the car screeching to a halt just inches from the grotesque apparition. The figure turned its head, and its hollow eyes locked onto Mark and Sarah. A guttural, otherworldly moan filled the air as it began to approach the car, its disjointed limbs moving in a macabre dance. Panic surged through Mark and Sarah as they fumbled to reverse the car and escape the nightmarish spectre. But as they sped away, the highway seemed to stretch infinitely before them, as if mocking their futile attempts to flee. The radio's spectral voice grew louder, filling their ears with a cacophony of anguished wails and maddening laughter. Desperation consumed them as they hurtled down Route 666, pursued by the malevolent force that had emerged from the shadows. The highway itself seemed to twist and warp, a shifting maze of terror that defied reason. Time lost all meaning, and the boundary between reality and nightmare blurred into a nightmare blurred into a nightmarish abyss. In the end, Mark and Sarah's fate remains a chilling mystery, lost to the cursed highway's insatiable hunger for lost souls. Those who dare to speak of Route 666 do so in hushed tones, for it is a place where the darkness reigns supreme, a highway to horrors beyond imagination, and a testament to the terrifying unknown that lurks in the heart of the midnight hour. Story number 2. Whispers in the Storm. A nightmarish road trip once upon a dark and stormy night, Elisha and Alex, feeling overwhelmed by the city's hustle and bustle, decided to embark on a spontaneous road trip. They longed for a peaceful escape in the countryside, a chance to unwind and leave the urban chaos behind. However, little did they know that their adventurous journey would soon take a spine, tingling twist into the unknown. They set out in their trusty but somewhat aging car, aiming to reach a secluded cabin they had rented for the weekend. Rain fell heavily, creating a relentless curtain that made it difficult to see the road ahead. The wind howled ominously, and the occasional rumble of thunder added to the eerie ambience that surrounded them. As they ventured deeper into the countryside, their GPS signal mysteriously vanished, leaving them with only an old-fashioned paper map as their guide. The winding roads seemed to lead them further into the wilderness, and an unsettling feeling of being watched began to creep over them. First, they brushed it off as mere paranoia caused by the stormy night. Suddenly, their car's engine sputtered and coughed before dying altogether. Elisha and Alex exchanged worried glances, realizing they were now stranded in the middle of nowhere. With no cell phone signal and no other vehicles in sight, they reluctantly decided to seek help on foot. In the distance, they spotted a faint light and decided to head towards it, hoping to find assistance. As they trudged through the relentless rain, it soaked through their clothes, chilling them to the bone. The light appeared to be emanating from an aged farmhouse, its silhouette eerily juxtaposed against the stormy night. Relieved at the prospect of shelter and help, they approached the house and knocked on its weathered door. To their dismay, there was no immediate response. The door slowly creaked open by itself, revealing a dimly lit corridor. Elisha and Alex cautiously stepped inside, calling out for anyone who might be present. Yet silence was the only response they received. An eerie sense of unease settled upon them as they explored the house, their footsteps echoing through empty rooms. Every creaking floorboard and flickering light intensified their growing apprehension. As they ventured deeper, they reached what appeared to be the basement and were greeted by an overwhelming stench that assailed their senses. Descending the dark staircase, they stumbled upon a horrifying scene. It was a makeshift torture chamber, adorned with sinister instruments and blood-stained walls. Panic seized them as they realized the house was not abandoned, but inhabited by someone deranged. With their hearts pounding and fear gripping their souls, they hastily retraced their steps, desperately yearning to escape the nightmarish horrors they had uncovered. Just as they reached the front door, a bone-chilling whisper emanated from behind them, leaving so soon. Driven by sheer terror, they bolted through the door, racing out into the storm. The rain continued to pelt them relentlessly, blurring their vision as they staggered through the mud and overgrown fields. Hours passed, and they finally came across a small gas station. The bewildered attendant, startled by their disheveled and drenched appearance, called the police on their behalf. Alicia and Alex recounted their harrowing ordeal, providing the officers with the farmhouse's location. The police conducted a thorough investigation of the farmhouse, yet it was utterly deserted. There was no trace of the horrifying scenes Elisha and Alicia and Alex had described. It was as if the nightmare they had endured had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the chilling memories. To this day, Elisha and Alex struggle to comprehend what they encountered during their ill-fated road trip. They question their sanity and wonder if they had unwittingly stumbled into a parallel universe, or if it had all been a hallucination induced by the storm. The memory of that night continues to haunt them, a chilling reminder of the terror they faced during their fateful journey into the unknown. Story number 3, Witch Encounter on Highway. Two friends, David and Raven, embarked on a spine-chilling journey to a party in the neighboring city. Their destination was a hill town named Lanavala, where a friend's vacation villa hosted the gathering. David took the reins as the rider, with Raven riding pillion. Raven, the younger of the two, was about 15 years old, while David, the older brother, was around 18. They departed from the city at night, and what made the night even more eerie was the fact that they could have taken their car, but, for some inexplicable reason, both preferred the bike. As they left the city behind, the well-lit roads gave way to ominous, pitch-black highways. These desolate roads were notorious for their haunting reputation, but most people wisely avoided driving on them at night, or they were safely cocooned in cars. Undaunted, the brothers ventured into the highways. About 20 minutes into the journey, Raven noticed an unsettling sight. A strange figure draped in a ghostly white gown stood by the side of the road as they whizzed past. They continued onward, and after another 5 minutes, Raven spotted it again. This pattern repeated, and on the fourth sighting, Raven couldn't hold back his fear any longer. He asked his older brother David if he saw the same eerie apparition. David remained ominously silent, but as the sightings persisted, Raven pressed again for an answer. Finally, David uttered in a hushed tone, "Whatever happens, don't look at it again." Even Raven, known for his bravery from a young age, felt a shiver of terror crawl down his spine. He buried his face in David's back, but couldn't resist peeking out again. To his horror, Raven saw that the white-gowned figure was not just a lifeless object, but a woman, and she was keeping pace with the bike. The brothers' 100th work bike was pushing 100 kemph, but the figure's feet didn't touch the ground, and they faced in the opposite direction of her body. Raven couldn't contain his dread any longer and screamed, Dayan, 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 which in Hindi. Witches in Indian folklore were infamous for their ability to walk with their feet pointing in the opposite direction. In response, David accelerated, refusing to stop for anything. They hurtled forward at breakneck speed for another hour until the bike's engine overheated and they had to pull over by a dimly lit roadside food vendor. The road remained shrouded in darkness, and the food stall offered the only meager source of light. Seeking solace, they decided to wait for the bike to cool down while having tea, hoping to shake off the horrifying encounter. The concerned food vendor inquired if they were all right, but he couldn't ignore the strange substance covering them that looked disturbingly like blood. Then, as he noticed both David and Raven under the feeble light, fear gripped him, and he refrained from asking any further question. They sipped their tea, all the while hearing rustling in nearby bushes. It wasn't the gentle swaying of branches in the wind. Only a portion of the bush moved, and it moved unnaturally. After settling the bill, they hurriedly continued their journey, reaching their destination without further incident. They rang the bell of the bungalow villa, and their friends were horrified when they first saw them. At first their friends couldn't discern whether the substance on David and Raven was blood, paint, dirt, or something far more sinister. After some coaxing, they persuaded their friends to step outside onto the lawn. Once in the dim light of the lawn, one of their friends turned on a water hose and sprayed them. Only when the water washed away the red, blood-like liquid did the gruesome truth become evident. The brothers recounted their harrowing story to their friends, and the local caretaker, who had heard such ominous tales before, urged them to weigh themselves. The results were baffling. David had inexplicably gained 15 kilos, defying all rational explanation. Meanwhile, Raven's weight remained unchanged. The story concludes here, but what happened that night left an indelible mark on David and Raven, forever haunting their nightmares. Story number 4, Eternal Echoes. The haunted journey through the enigmatic woods many years ago, in the bloom of our youth, my friend and I embarked on an adventure that would etch a haunting mystery into our memories. The mission was simple. We set out to visit another friend at her remote university campus, nestled in the heart of a serene countryside. Armed with detailed directions that promised a smooth 3-hour drive, we eagerly anticipated a weekend of laughter and camaraderie. As our journey began, the sun bathed the sky in warm hues of orange and pink, and our spirits were high. We laughed and shared stories, blissfully unaware that something sinister was lurking just beyond the horizon. The minutes ticked away, but time itself seemed to warp, stretching our journey into a seemingly endless nightmare. I can't pinpoint the precise moment when it began, but I recall an unsettling sensation of entering a dense, foreboding forest. Towering trees closed in around us, their gnarled branches casting long, sinister shadows over the winding road. The forest engulfed us in an oppressive silence, and an hour became 2 as we ventured deeper into this labyrinth of dread. Strangely, we were not lost. The directions were crystal clear, and we encountered no traffic or unexpected delays. What defied all reason was the inexplicable duration of our passage through this sinister woods. Our anticipated 3-hour journey spiraled into a chilling odyssey. Finally, after an eternity had passed, we emerged from the haunting forest and arrived at our friend's college town. Nearly 4.5 hours had elapsed since we began our enigmatic journey, leaving us bewildered and rattled. Yet, the prospect of reuniting with our friend pushed these unsettling thoughts to the back of our minds, at least temporarily. On the journey back, retracing the same directions and routes, a growing unease took hold. The trip clocked in at just over 3 hours, a stark contrast to the prolonged nightmare of the outbound trip. We couldn't shake the eerie feeling that we were being watched, and an unspoken fear clung to us like a shadow. Subsequent visits followed a similar pattern, each taking a regular 3 hours. Yet the memory of that elusive forest continued to haunt me, a dark enigma that I couldn't shake. What happened during those eerie hours? Where were we truly when we passed through those malevolent woods? The unanswered questions loomed, casting a chilling shadow over our seemingly innocent road trip, a sinister secret buried within the tapestry of our memories. Story number 1. The Midnight Highway Encounter. Mysterious roadside apparitions. One night, it was very late, around 10:30. I sat in the front seat of my friend David's car while 3 other friends, 2 boys and 1 girl, were in the back. We had just finished eating at a quiet place outside of town, and 1 girl were in the back. We're heading home on a dark and lonely road with no streetlights. In the back of the car, my friends started telling spooky stories about this road. They said ghostly children would appear, crossing the road barefoot, scaring anyone who saw them. Their stories were a bit too dramatic to believe. However, David, who was driving, was getting really scared. He asked our friends to stop talking about ghosts. I laughed and patted his back, telling him that ghosts and evil spirits aren't real. But then something strange happened. 3 men suddenly appeared on the road. David swerved the car to avoid hitting them. We all jumped in our seats. We passed by them safely, but the car was filled with shock, and everyone fell silent. It was so dark that we couldn't tell where these men came from. I was sure I would have seen them earlier if they had been walking there. The fun stories and laughter were gone, replaced by fear. The girl in the back seat asked David to drive faster so we could get home quickly. I tried to reassure them, saying the men were probably local villagers out for a walk after dinner. But then the car swerved again, almost hitting the road divider. I turned around and asked, "What happened?" David was gripping the steering wheel tightly, barely speaking. Those were the same 3 men we passed 5 minutes ago. I was shocked. No, that can't be. Was the one in the middle wearing a yellow turban? David nodded. Yes, and the one on the left had a red jacket. I'm sure it was them. I felt a sudden fear. I looked at my phone's map and said, "We have about 1 kilometer left. Let's stay alert until we reach home." The road was bumpy, but David drove as fast as he could, covering the distance in 10 minutes. As we neared the town, we saw a single headlight in the distance. I grabbed David's arm in alarm, and everyone held their breath, not knowing what to expect. As we got closer, we saw a broken-down motorcycle by the road. 3 men stood next to it, signaling for us to stop and help. These men looked younger, maybe in their 20s, but the one who waved us down was wearing a red cardigan, and the man near the motorcycle had a black shawl on his shoulders. We didn't stop. We stayed quiet, and David sped past them. I looked back, worried they might chase us, but they had disappeared. None of us said a word until we reached the town. We all sighed with relief. What happened that night? Who were those mysterious men, and what did they want from us? What would have happened if we had stopped our car? Even today, I get chills when I remember that night. Those 3 strange men are etched in my mind, a reminder that what happened was real, not my imagination.